Hey guys, welcome to KSP, and we're really honored because here we are with Miss Mona Seervai, who's obviously head of school at Mount Litera School, and she's also consultant to the
To the IB,
Yes,
to the IB themselves.
And Miss Mona, you've had an experience of how many years across teaching?
25.
All right, before we get into IB, there's just so much confusion on all the different boards, and given that you've been teaching for the last 25 years, can you briefly sum up each of the different boards and just what the crux of each one of them is?
I'm not sure that the boards will want them to be summed up in a minute. So there's the national boards and there are the international boards. If you look at the national boards, you have the ICSE, which is a national board, CBSE for kids who travel. You have the state board, which in Maharashtra is SSE, and every state has its own state board. So those are the local Indian boards. And then you have the international boards, which in India are basically two: the Cambridge, which is IGCSE followed by A levels, and the IB, which has 4 programs actually, but
Right.
3 programs, primary, middle, and 2 programs for high school.
Right. And briefly, if you want to walk through the philosophies or what the highlight of each
The
program
essence
is.
of each program. See, SSE is a local Maharashtra board. You have a very well set out syllabus, and there are textbooks that are available. With hand on heart, having worked in SSE schools for the last 2 years, I've completely changed my perception about them. I think they are really doing a good job and they have a tremendous outreach. The thing is that the assessment is only examination driven. So at the end of it, they will do an exam. ICSE is like a national board and there are choices. So students can choose between, well, they will do English and social studies compulsory. They can choose whether to do math and science or to do something else like another language or commerce or business. And then they have nice options in what they call group 3, like yoga, art, cookery, or even physical education. ICSE has evolved over a period of time and they have both internal and external assessment. If I remember right, it's 20% internal and 80% external. There are about 11 subjects that an average student does, but they get collapsed into 6 subjects because they combine different subject groups. CBSE is the board where they have it very well laid out by the NCERT, good for students who are of parents who transfer across the country, and it's pretty much standardized with the textbooks. And I think they too are trying very hard in bringing in critical thinking and bringing in yoga and artificial intelligence. In fact, they just announced it a couple of days ago and saying, okay, we want to also keep up with the time. So those are the Indian boards. Cambridge is set in Cambridge, as the name implies, and they have a primary years program and they have the lower secondary program, which is middle school. But what Cambridge is really known for is the IGCSE, which is an examination that happens after grade 10. It is a content-driven examination. There are some subjects that do offer coursework, but ultimately it is based on that examination, and the grading system is A's and A stars and letters and so on. That is followed by the A levels, which is a pre-university course where students take between 3 to 5 subjects, usually 3 because it's very, very rigorous. And then they get their year 12 qualification and they can move on. So that's as far as Cambridge goes. The IB is really split into 3 levels. So you have the PYP, or the primary years program, which goes from the early years to grade 5. And the teaching over here is what is called transdisciplinary. So there are no subjects, there are focus areas, and the students learn through different themes. Then you have the middle years program, which is an interdisciplinary program, and there are 8 different subject groups. But like, for example, the IB will never say you're learning a language. They will call it language acquisition. Because learning a language is not just the vocabulary and the grammar. It's also learning the culture of a particular place, no matter what the place is. And IB also encourages mother tongue learning and local language learning. That's the middle years. Post that, the most popular high school program is a diploma program, but I wouldn't be doing justice if I didn't mention the career program with the IB, though I don't know if there are any schools in India, I don't know, that are offering it, because with that career program, you have to affiliate to a vocational institute.
Okay.
And so you do your IB courses, but you also get a vocational degree.
Okay.
So it's not very well known, but I have to mention it. The most popular IB program is a diploma program.
Right.
In fact, IB educators can argue whether the jewel in the IB crown is the diploma program or the primary years program.
Right.
The middle years is sort of in between.
Yes.
So the diploma program is a 2-year rigorous 11th and 12th program where the students will then qualify and then they can go to university.
Right.
Huh?
Now, we're going to straight dive into the many myths and questions what you have to answer. So first one up, somebody's asked, is IB expensive and why is it considered expensive?
Okay. So let's say schools are expensive, and not that IB is expensive. The cost of the IB program really goes in the teacher preparation, teacher training, and the workshops that we all have to go through. And also there is no one single textbook. So you have to get your material from multiple sources, including online sources, which will then obviously add to the expense. IB doesn't have a mandate on the fees, but they have their annual candidacy and their fee, the annual fee that they charge schools. They charge for the teacher training. But I can give you 2 examples. In Nasik, there is a school called Rasbihari, which is a low-income primary years program school. And in Hyderabad, there is a school called Focus High, which is also a low-income IB school. So it is possible. However, those schools are supported by the trust that is supporting them.
Right.
And so they are able to make IB more affordable. I just wish it could be more affordable for everybody.
Right. IB is currently available in a lot of top tier cities, especially in India. Do you see it trickling down to?
It's available in cities like Surat and Ahmedabad as well. So it's not, and there are, I think, close to 139 IB schools across India.
Right.
So it is widely distributed.
Why do you think a lot of schools today are moving towards the IB? Is it with more awareness from parents? Is this the need of the hour in terms of technology and the way the jobs are going to be evolving?
Yeah, so first let me just look at the paradigm. When you say a lot of schools, it's like sab log bolte hain. It's like, who are all these sab log, right?
Yes.
So a lot of schools come in the kind of circles that we move in.
Right.
You have to realize that school, education is national, and so the bulk of the schools are local.
Right.
And so let's just clarify that. Okay, why are parents or educators moving towards this? I think having taught all the different boards, as an educator, I have to say I just simply love teaching the IB board. For one, it is like rooted in real life. It gives the teachers the flexibility and the freedom. We are preparing the students for a world that we don't know will exist tomorrow. I have absolutely no idea what it's going to look like. Let's just take an example of technology, right? I mean, just in January, The Economist did this whole article on childhood, and they talked about technology and how to embrace technology. And they were saying that when the radio and the television came out, they were feared as disrupting family life.
Yeah.
Today, the television is your metaphoric fireplace where the family gathers together to watch something. So similarly, we can't hide or we can't shy away from technology. We need to embrace it. Will technology ever replace a human being? In my heart, I can tell you no. And I really, truly believe that. But can I use technology like we're doing right now? Look at the outreach that we're having. So similarly, the IB schools give you that flexibility to look not only at technology, but to look at forward-thinking methodologies. So for example, we are not only teaching content, we're teaching understanding and we're teaching skills. Knowledge is locked in space and time. So for example, if I were to ask you what you remember about the Indus Valley civilization in your school, what comes to mind?
I remember the public baths.
You remember the public baths. Don't you remember that dancing girl and those seals?
Yes.
But do you remember anything beyond that? No. If the same idea was to be taught today, so you see it's locked with Indus Valley. What would we do here? First of all, we would look at the whole understanding of river valleys and
Right.
why do people settle by river valleys? How do civilizations develop over a period of time? So what is the difference between a settlement and a civilization?
Right.
What are the attributes or characteristics of a civilization? What is it that transfers over time? What are the artifacts that we look at as historians that help us piece together the story of the civilization?
Right.
I'm no longer restricting it to the Indus Valley civilization. I can apply this to the Egyptian, to the Chinese civilization. I can apply it today because I can actually look at what are some of the artifacts, what are the footprints that we are leaving behind, whether carbon or real or digital, we are leaving footprints.
Absolutely.
And going forward, history is not observable.
Right.
So somebody will recreate our lives based on the footprints that we leave. Now imagine a little child, whether in grade 4 or in grade 12. The grade 4 will understand civilization as a story. The grade 12 will analyze it and say, history just can never be observed, it can only be reconstructed. So what does this mean? So if you're asking me as an education system, some of us, when we taught in ICSE schools, may have done this intuitively.
Right.
Okay, I was fortunate enough to be in an ICSE school where we were encouraged as teachers to do creative things and to ensure that students, engaged in true learning. But everybody doesn't do that. Here in an IB school, we all collaborate. There is also a lot of sharing. Okay, if I want to do something, I can send in a post, I can look up a blog, I can find another educator, and I can tell somebody in Vancouver, you know what, this is what I'm doing. Have you done this lesson? Or how would you approach it?
Right.
And I would get a response and saying, why don't you try something a little differently? Or my culture and my climatic conditions are different. So it looks like this. What would it look like in your country? So that's one thing, right? So that's the understanding piece of it. So we're going beyond knowledge and teaching understanding. We're also teaching skills. So what I did right now was I enumerated some critical thinking skills. I talked about some analytical skills. We don't have to narrow it down and think a skill is only doing a good map and coloring within the boundaries. That is a skill, but skills go beyond that. So there are also the soft skills. We also get students to, for example, I just did a class today on trying to understand whether intelligence is inborn or whether it can be developed. So the first thing I did is I asked them to take a stance, and I said, go to different corners of the room. And then I said, I want 3 reasons for why you took this stance. Now that's a critical thinking skill.
Yeah.
And then I gave them an article and I told them, I want you to summarize this article in 12 words. So the first thing the kids told me, it's very difficult. So I said it would be difficult to summarize in 1,000 words. But the point is, what are you going to pick up? You are going to pick up the key ideas in this article. And yes, I'm saying 12 words. If you want 14, we will look at that. But I don't want you rambling. I want you to be able to pick up what are the key issues and put it together. So see, that's the kind of skill that you would need. Imagine if you go for a job, nobody really cares how much you know. They do care what you're going to do with what you know.
Right.
So do you get the difference?
Yes, absolutely. I'm just thinking, like, why were we not taught like this? Or why didn't this exist when we were growing up? But moving on to the next one is, what are the popular Indian universities that accept children who graduated after the IPT?
After year 12?
Yes.
Bombay University, HR College, Xavier's College, Delhi University.
Right.
Those are the local universities. We now have liberal arts universities like Ashoka, Flames, Kriya.
Yeah.
So if I think your question is leading on to what if after the DP,
Correct. After the DP.
Yes, I don't want my child to go abroad.
Yes, that's like a big. So
It's a huge
the question
myth.
into 2. One is address the myth that IB DP students will only go to foreign universities. I'm saying that's
complete myth.
Complete myth. So she's going to address that. And the second, what are the opportunities after year 12?
Sure. I think we need to understand a very fundamental question, and why is it that students want to go abroad?
Yes.
Is it only after the IBDP? There were students who were going even after HSC or ISC
Correct.
or CBSE.
Right.
They're going because they aspire for a different kind of education, which earlier was not available here. But with the coming in of universities like Ashoka and Kriya and Flames, there are students who are now looking at wanting to stay back because they are also experiencing a similar liberal arts kind of education at the undergraduate level. So, for example, in my time, I only went abroad for my master's because it was unheard of to go for undergraduate. In my children's time, they went at undergraduate level. Today, there are kids who want to go abroad to do even high school, but the numbers are dwindling because we do have options of good high schools over here. So, to answer your myth, do you have to go abroad after you do the IB? It's absolutely no. I can give you an example of one of our brightest students who did the DP and then chose to do physics at St. Xavier's College and did perfectly well, and today is doing a master's in Germany in physics. He was very, very clear that that is what he wanted to do. There were others who were clear that they wanted to go abroad and pursue something like fashion design, and so they felt that they could do that better. I think they're personal choices and not the board. It's not a board choice. No board tells you that you can't go abroad.
Correct. So it's an absolute myth. Second is, what about the Indian competitive exams that happen, the entrance exams that
Sure.
happen?
So, whichever board a student does, they will have to prepare separately for the entrance exam. Are you telling me that CBSE schools don't simultaneously run classes?
Right.
Of course they do. So the board does not prepare you for the entrance exam. The entrance exam is a strategy exam.
Right.
So you have to invest in getting the best possible score for that exam so that you can get into a college or into an institute of your choice. So no matter what the board is, you will have to prepare for the entrance exams, right? What happens with the IB is that the examination of the diploma programs are also held in May.
Okay.
And the entrance exams are also held in May. So that is the only thing that becomes a dual. It's like, how do you do both?
Yes.
It's a lot of stress on an individual. I see nothing wrong in taking a gap here.
Right.
I don't know why parents think that if you're young and you finish your education, you're better off. It's always nice. There are so many students who do wonderful things during their gap year. I mean, you can have a student who uses their gap year to build awareness on the LGBTQ community in India, for example. You could have a student who goes to another country and studies over there. Could be somebody else who volunteers at a service learning place. So what you do in that gap year will always influence you for life. And then you take time out, prepare for your entrance exams and do it 1 year later. That would be a less stressful choice, because just imagine in May you're doing 2 exams simultaneously.
And both really important.
Both are very rigorous.
Right. Okay. Then we have the next question where we've got, is the IB curriculum extremely demanding as a course, and will it add added pressure on my child?
So you will need a student to have a disposition of wanting to work hard, putting in that effort, taking responsibility and ownership. I think that is what you require. Is the course hard? I would change the word hard to being, the course is rigorous. It's very rigorous, it's very demanding. But honestly, I, to date, don't know a single student who did the diploma program who didn't say it was transformative in some way, because it changes the way you think.
Okay, so it is going to be rigorous, guys. If my child studied in another curriculum in the initial years and missed the PYP, MYP, will he or she still be able to cope with IB at class 10 and 11?
There's no IB at class. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
sorry.
talking about the DP. So you mean class 12.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes. I've had toppers from the CBSE, from the IGCSE and the ICSE curriculum.
Right.
So you come in, most schools have a bridging program where they teach the skills that they feel the kids need to know before they approach the DP. Let's get one thing clear, nothing prepares you for the diploma program. Right. It is really one of the most challenging programs. I wish I could have done it. My daughter did it, and when she actually did it and she graduated in 2007, one of the first things she told me is, Mom, you should just be an IB teacher. That was when I was still an ICSE teacher looking at IGCSE. So I can tell you that it is really very, very transformative, and nothing prepares you for it. So even if you come from the MYP, believe you me, you will have to have your mindset and be ready and prepared to work and put in that effort.
So it is, in a sort, it is aligning, right? If you haven't done the PYP and MYP, you'll have to realign the way you think, or
You have to realign anyway if you want to do the DP.
right.
So even if you've done the MYP, you'll need to realign because the MYP is so warm and fuzzy and everybody is doing their personal project and it's interdisciplinary, and suddenly you come into the DP and you have 6 subject groups and there is all this content and it's content driven and there is so much
Isn't
stuff.
it like a building block that it kind of prepares you if you've done
Yes
PYP,
and
MYP?
no. It prepares you with the skills. So it prepares you because you know the language. You know what it means to be a good learner. You know what is meant by the approaches to learning skills that we have. You know what concepts are. You know what inquiry is. So you know some of the vocabulary and you have had that experience. What have you done in an traditional school? You are very good at rote memorization. Maybe you were in a school that encouraged you to think out of the box, to do things a little differently. But maybe you were also that kid who yearned to learn differently. And so if you yearned for that, you'll take to it very easily.
Right.
If you think that you can just rote memorize and get by in the DP, yes, perhaps you can, but then you'll just get by in the knowledge space of it.
Right. Okay, they say that in IB, in addition to helping my child choose the desired subject, also has the theory of
Yeah, the
TOK,
core.
the
The
TOK,
core.
the CAS, and the essays.
Extended essay.
Will a child who started in a regular school like the ICSE, CBSE find all of these difficult?
Just look at a child who A, likes to read, do research, and write.
Okay.
Those are the 3 things that you need. So even if you've done the MYP, yes, the MYP will have a little advantage because they would have done their personal project by the time they finish grade 10.
Right.
But to do the core of the IB, it'll take me 3 days to explain to you each element of the core.
Right.
But basically, TOK is how do I know what I
Right.
know? And the extended essay is an independent research, that a 4,000 piece essay that is mandatory for the students to write. And they also have to do, did you mention CAS, the creativity,
Yes,
activity, and service? So in MYP, service learning is mandatory.
Okay.
But we would again have to get them to understand the requirements of the core.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And really, it makes me want to
Do the IBDP?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to go back and get
So
educated.
see how lucky we are as teachers. We have this opportunity to keep our minds open.